Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session on Unit 13 of MED-002, titled Community Knowledge. In this unit, we will explore two types of community knowledge systems. The first is modern scientific knowledge, and second is traditional knowledge. Together, they help solve real-world problems. Modern scientific knowledge comes from laboratories, formal institutions, and structured research methods. Traditional knowledge grows out of daily experience, cultural practices, and local experimentation passed down through generations. Community knowledge helps people take care of many things, like farming, forests, health, and traditional crafts. It makes sure that development is not just based on science, but also respects local culture and lasts for future generations. Traditional wisdom offers deep, local insights like signs of changing weather or important cultural practices that science might overlook. Science, in turn, gives us tools to measure, test, and refine these practices. Our goal is to value both kinds of knowledge equally, and to learn from how they work together. On the next slide, we will explore three key objectives that highlight the value of combining traditional knowledge with scientific approaches for sustainable development. Our first objective is to describe the importance of traditional knowledge in sustainable development. We'll see how generations of local knowledge improve water conservation, soil management, and health, providing simple yet powerful solutions. Our second objective is to explain the benefits of partnerships between scientific and traditional knowledge systems. You'll learn about projects where scientists and community members work together to boost crop yields, strengthen conservation efforts, and enhance public health. Our third objective is to suggest ways to innovate indigenous techniques with scientific methods. Together, these objectives will guide us through examples, key principles, best practices, helping us understand how traditional knowledge and science can work together for a more sustainable future. Let's move on to the next slide, where we explore traditional knowledge as the living memory of communities, shaped by nature and passed down through practice, stories, and rituals. Traditional knowledge is the living memory of a community, shaped over time through close observation and learning from nature. Knowledge built over centuries by local communities, and it is based on the environment, culture, and practice. For example, a semi-arid farming village, where ancestors learned to predict rainfall by watching wind patterns and bird behaviors. As a result, they developed terracing techniques that prevent soil erosion, guide rainwater into fields, and protect young plants. Such knowledge includes practices in agriculture, medicine, tools, and other areas as well. Likewise, fisherfolk observe the behavior of otters and turtles to locate fish and time their nets to avoid overfishing during spawning. In a similar way, healers watch how patient responds to herbal teas and treatments. Over time, they improve their recipes to treat wounds, reduce fever, and support digestion. Thus, all this knowledge comes from everyday life in nature, and are passed down through songs, stories and festivals from one generation to next generations. Moreover, traditional knowledge is closely linked to nature, that's why it offers simple, low-cost solutions. For example, in dry areas, farmers use zai pits to help plants grow. Zai pits are small holes with compost and water. They adjust them over time to match changing weather. Similarly, some forests communities protect sacred groves where tree cutting is not allowed. These areas help conserve biodiversity and important resources. These examples show that traditions practices not only protect the environment but also strengthen communities. Traditional knowledge is not outdated, but it's a living system that supports sustainable life. Let's move on to the next slide to explore how modern scientific knowledge builds on these insights through structured research and advanced technology. Modern scientific knowledge comes from a structured process of asking questions, testing ideas, and learning from results. It is codified and systematic, often acquired through institutions, and applies universal principles that have wide application. Scientists make hypotheses, test them through experiments, and results reviewed by others. This process helps us discover universal ideas, like how soil holds water or how plants use certain natural compounds. These ideas can be used in many different places. Science also gives us powerful tools, like satellite remote sensing, genetic sequencing, and climate models. These tools help us in precise measurements and predictions beyond what the eye can be observed. These advances have driven progress in areas like medicine, agriculture, industry, and ICT. When scientists work with traditional practitioners, they can use advanced tools to check and improve local methods. For example, they take soil samples using traditional composting, then test nutrient levels in labs. Then compare these with synthetic fertilizer to measure improvements. Ecologists can use drones to map tree density in sacred groves. This testing not only strengthens traditional practices but also discover new ideas, like the best planting depths or microbial strains. By adopting these steps, the scientific community can shift towards a partnership model, where respect for traditional knowledge leads to more sustainable outcomes. Let's move on to the next slide, to explore specific actions the scientific community can take to integrate traditional knowledge into research and practice. The scientific community can take simple but important steps to respect and integrate traditional knowledge in their work. One way is to build awareness by organizing workshops and field visits where researchers spend time with community elders and practitioners. This helps them understand the cultural context and environmental indicators that guides everyday decisions. Another step is to highlight contributions by co-authoring research papers and presentations with indigenous experts and making the research findings available in local languages. This ensures that community can see the outcome of their collaboration. They can also support research by creating special grants for projects that record oral histories, traditional practices, and artisanal or handmade techniques, treating them as valuable data sources of knowledge. And finally, it's important to respect cultural protocols by adapting research around local seasons, festivals, and how the community makes decisions. By following these steps, science moves away from simply collecting data from communities and builds true partnerships, where learning happens together, with mutual respect and understanding. This spirit of working together leads to better data, stronger community involvement, and long-term care for both knowledge and natural resources. Let's move on to the next slide to see how integrating local knowledge with science leads to better and more sustainable solutions. Integration means combining community knowledge with scientific research to create a strong and balanced plan for sustainable development. This leads to more sustainable local solutions, as community members share detailed local knowledge, like how the climate changes in different parts of a valley, when pests appear during flower seasons, or how water levels change in nearby wells. Scientists use tools like data analysis, models, and laboratory techniques to measure and confirm these observations. It also encourages community involvement and faster adoption of improved practices. When these strengths combine, they create solutions that are respect culture and supported by research. For example, a traditional forest management plan that controls wood harvesting based on lunar cycles. Scientists might install moisture sensors to verify that soil moisture matches those cycles, confirming the plan makes sense for the environment. They could then refine harvesting schedules to further optimize forest regeneration. This approach supports balanced policies for growth and equity, as it helps secure funding from evidence-based donors, and informs policies that integrate economic, social, and environmental priorities. Let's move on to next slide to see how combining traditional practices with science supports sustainable farming and forestry. Local communities have deep knowledge passed down over generations. Tribal healers in tropical forests can identify many medicinal plants just by looking at their leaves and flowers, while fishers can spot fish spawning by small changes in behavior. Scientists work with them to turn these observations into data by collecting samples, using DNA tests, and creating population models. Together, they design conservation plans that combine scientific methods, like analyzing population health and connecting habitats with cultural values, such as sacred sites and traditional land rights. This partnership also supports local farming. Communities use indigenous soil and irrigation methods, breed crops using local strains, and apply drip irrigation to save water and grow sustainably. For example, a community in Madagascar combined their traditional protection of lemur habitats with GPS-based patrols. This resulted in a 40% drop in illegal logging and significant increase in lemur populations in 5 years. These successes show that best results come when science and culture work together. Let's move on to the next slide, where we explore how science and tradition work together to support local artisans and preserve cultural heritage. Local knowledge also supports nature conservation. For instance, elders use traditional taxonomic knowledge to identify plants and animals, which helps scientists discover new species. Communities manage sacred groves, protecting forests through cultural beliefs without needing formal laws. And in coastal regions, traditional marine conservation methods guide sustainable fishing practices that protect coral reefs and breeding areas. Similarly, artisanal crafts like pottery, weaving, metalwork, and basket making rely on family-based skills that have been passed down through generations. These crafts often use local, renewable materials, such as clay from river banks and natural fibers from nearby forests. For example, potters collect clay and firewood, then shape and fire their pots in traditional kilns. Scientists study the clay and kiln temperatures. They suggest small improvements like pre-drying the clay or adjusting airflow in the kiln to reduce breakage and save fuel. NGOs and scientists collaborate to upgrade these skills, introducing quality control measures, standard sizes, and eco-friendly materials. Designers also support artisans by helping them create traditional products that appeal to modern buyers. By combining science with culture, these partnerships increase artisans' earning, support cooperatives, and keep their crafts alive. Let's move on to the next slide, where we look at how traditional medicine and modern science work together to improve healthcare. Traditional medical systems, like Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and many local healing practices, continue to serve as primary health source for millions of people. In fact, around 80% of the global population still relies on traditional medicine for their everyday health needs. These systems use herbs, specific diets, massage techniques, and spiritual methods to treat a wide variety of illnesses. Today, scientists partner with traditional healers in a respectful process known as bioprospecting, where ancient knowledge guides the search for modern medicines. Researchers document plant-based remedies, identify active compounds in labs, and test their safety and effectiveness. For example, in one community, healers use a paste made from neem and turmeric to treat skin infections. Scientists isolate antibacterial compounds from neem, test them in the lab, and develop a standard ointment. Clinical trials then assess its effectiveness and check for possible side effects. Ethical guidelines ensure the community retains rights to their knowledge and shares benefits if the remedy is sold. These partnerships not only improve health and build trust, but also create new treatments based on centuries of wisdom. Let's move on to the next slide, which outlines the key principles that make partnerships between scientists and communities truly effective. Strong partnerships between scientists and communities are built on four main principles. First principle is mutual respect. Both scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom are treated as equally valuable. Researchers learn the community's culture and language, while community members become familiar with research tools and ideas. Second principle is informed consent. Before collecting any data or using resources, researchers make sure the community fully understands the purpose, process, risks, and benefits. This consent is documented not just with legal forms, but also through local customs and rituals. Third principle is benefit sharing and ownership rights. All benefits, like money, knowledge, or recognition, are shared fairly. This could include co-ownership of patents, revenue sharing model, or new community infrastructure funded through research grants. And fourth principle is training for scientists and indigenous people. Communities receive training to use tools, like GPS or soil sensors, and to manage their own data. At the same time, scientists learn from local mentors about cultural norms and community decision-making. When these principles are followed, partnerships avoid exploitation, build real trust, and make communities equal partners in research and development. This leads to more lasting projects, deeper understanding, and stronger social bonds. Let's quickly review the key points from today's session. Community knowledge blends two powerful systems, traditional wisdom passed down through generations, and modern science based on research and testing. Integration enhances sustainable development, as traditional knowledge offers low-cost, culturally relevant solutions, while science provides tools to measure and improve these ideas. When these systems come together, partnerships accelerate local solutions. Farmers combine local experience with sensor data to optimize planting. Cultural stories protect sacred groves, while ecologists map biodiversity. Traditional healers collaborate with scientists to turn herbal remedies into proven, safe medicines. For these partnerships to succeed, they must be built on respect, consent, fair sharing of benefits, and skill building for both sides. These values create lasting solutions that support the economy, protect the environment, and promote fairness for all. Thank you for joining today's session on community knowledge. We have explored how traditional and scientific knowledge systems can work together to create innovative, sustainable solutions across sectors. In our next session, we'll cover Unit 14, Harness Technology, where we'll focus on how modern and traditional technologies contribute to sustainable development in key sectors like health, agriculture, and energy.